Good morning Year 2, welcome to Tuesday's maths lesson. I would like you to write today's date and skill into your book please. The date today is Tuesday the 23rd of February 2021 and your skill is to identify the correct unit of measure. I'd like you to write that into your book now please and then unpause the video when you're ready to begin. Okay, our starter then. Barbara is ordering this week's milks for lunchtime. When Barbara wrote the order, she asked for 150 millilitres of milk. When the order arrived, there was nowhere near enough milk for the whole school. What should Barbara have done? So I would like you to have a discussion about this question with the person next to you or grown up at home, or have a little think on your own and pause the video and discuss this now please. Okay, well done. Yes, you should have checked how much milk was in each bottle and thought about how much milk she needed in total so she could figure out how many bottles of milk she needed to order. Well done. Okay, let's learn then. The first thing you're going to do today, you're going to be matching the unit of measure to the measurement. So here we have got the measurements here. So we've got length, weight, capacity and temperature, and then here we have the unit of measure. So I would like you to think which one goes with which, so match them up. So I'd like to pause the video and think about this now please. Okay, well done. Let's see if you're right then. So length, we use millimetres, centimetres or metres. We're going to learn about all of these in a little more detail in a moment. For weight, we use grams or kilograms. So if you're baking something, you might use grams, or you might buy a whole kilogram of flour, for example. Capacity, you're going to be using millilitres or litres. And for temperature, you're going to be using degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit. Okay, so we're going to have a little think now about our units of measure. So how many centimetres are in 1 metre? How many grams are in 1 kilogram? And how many millilitres are in 1 litre? I'd like you to pause the video and discuss these questions now, please. Okay, so there are 10 millimetres in 1 centimetre. There are 100 centimetres in 1 metre. And then if we're thinking about weight, there are 1,000 grams in 1 kilogram. And if we're thinking about capacity, there are 1,000 millilitres in 1 litre. So why is it so important to use the correct unit of measure, do you think? And I would like you to talk to your talk partner. When do you need to use the correct unit of measure? When is it really important you're using the correct unit of measure? I'd like you to pause the video and discuss these questions now, please. So you always need to use the correct unit of measure when you're writing down a measurement. And it's really important that you do that you use the correct unit of measure so that the reader knows exactly what you're talking about and they don't measure it incorrectly. So if you just write down 10, they're not going to know. If you mean 10 grams, so if you say 10 flour, they're not going to know that that's weight unless you've got grams there, okay, to show that that's the unit of measure you're using, for example. Okay, today then we are going to be focusing on units of measure and we're going to be deciding which unit of measure would be the most sensible for a range of objects. So I'd like you to talk to your talk partner. Joy wants to measure her rubber. Will she measure using centimetres or metres? Okay, so think, is centimetres, what's bigger, centimetres or metres, and which one would be most sensible to use to measure her rubber? I'd like you to pause the video and talk to your talk partner now, please. Okay, so a rubber is quite a small item, isn't it? So we will need to use the smallest unit of measure. So the smaller unit of measure there, out of centimetres and metres, is centimetres. Okay, so we're going to measure the rubber using centimetres rather than metres. Well done if you said that. Okay, discuss then wants to measure how much water is in her bathtub when it's full. Will she use millilitres, which is the smaller unit of measure, or litres, which is the larger unit of measure? I'd like you to pause the video and discuss this now, please. Okay, so a full bathtub uses a lot of water, and we know that a litre is greater than a millilitre. So we would need to measure the capacity of this bathtub when it's full in litres. Well done if you said that, Year 2. Sadness said that she is measuring how tall she is using millimetres. Joy thinks that there's an easier way. Is Joy correct? And if she is correct, What do you think she suggests that you use? I would like you to pause the video and discuss this question now, please. Okay, so Joy is correct. Well done if you said that year too. It would be easier to measure how tall sadness is by using metres, because metres is a larger measure than millimetres. Okay, well done. So, time for your guided practice now then. Here are some objects. I would like you to decide which unit of measure would be the most sensible to use and see if you can explain why as well. Okay, so the first thing I would like you to think about what you would use is to measure the length of this house. Would you use millimetres, centimetres or metres? So I'd like you to put your thinking hats on. Which unit of measure would you use to measure the length of this house? I'd like you to pause the video and discuss this now, please. Okay, well done. A house is very large, isn't it? Very long, so we would use metres to measure the length of this house because centimetres and millimetres are smaller than metres. Okay, next guided practice then. Here's another object I would like you to think about. I would like you to think, if you wanted to find the weight of a mobile phone, would you use grams or would you use kilograms? What do you think? Grams or kilograms? Pause the video and discuss this now, please. Okay, well done. Next one then. What about this glass? It was quite a small glass. Which unit of measure do you think we would need to use to find the capacity of this glass? It's quite a small glass. Pause the video and discuss this now, please. Okay, so would we use millilitres or litres? What do we think? Well done, millilitres. It's a very small glass and a litre is a much larger unit of measure, so we're going to use millilitres to measure the capacity of that glass. Well done. Okay, so time for your independent practice. Just as we did in the guided practice, your task is to decide which unit of measure to use for a range of objects. Once you have completed the given objects, you're going to then find some objects around your house and decide which unit of measure to use for that object. Okay, so for example, I've got my cup of tea here and I would be thinking, right, what would I use, what unit of measure would I use for my cup of tea? And then I'd be thinking, right, is it going to be millilitres, is it going to be litres, how big is it? And I would then decide I'm going to be using millilitres to measure the capacity. Okay, so anything from around your house, you might go and gather a few and put them in front of you and then work through them. Okay, but first of all then, before you get on to that part, here are your challenges. So this is the cool and mild challenge. You will be given an object and a choice of the units of measure. So if we have a look at the first example then, this is your object, so the length of a pair of scissors, and this is the choice of your units of measure. So would you use centimetres or would you use metres? Okay. And you are going to need to choose the correct one. So you might underline the one that you're going to use or circle the correct one, okay? You can print this PDF from the website or you can just write it into your book. So if you don't have a printer or you don't want to print this off, you can just write the length of a pair of scissors equals and then whether you would use centimetres or metres to measure that, okay? That's the cool challenge and the mild challenge. If you would like to do spicy and hot, you're going to be given an object and you're going to need to decide which unit of measure to choose for that object. So you're not going to be given any hints, unlike in the cool and mild challenge, you're going to be choosing which unit of measure to use instead. So once again, you can print this PDF from the website or you can just write it in your book. So you could write, for example, the length of a pair of scissors equals and whether you would use centimetres or metres. Okay, I'd like you to pause the video and complete your main challenge now. Off you go, please. Okay, time for our final thought. I hope you've really enjoyed thinking about the units of measure today. Is your reasoning challenge time now. So, Tom's pencil weighs 3 grams. He estimates that the pencil weighs 23 grams. Has he made a good estimation and why? So I'd like you to have a little think about this now, please, and pause the video. Okay, so his estimation is quite far off, isn't it? So it's 20 grams more than the actual weight. So he might need to work on his estimation skills a little bit more. Okay, well done, Year 2. I hope you have a lovely day and you enjoyed your maths lesson. Goodbye.